Impeachment Part 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Podcast Part 2, Impeachment Part 2.
I'm kind of surprised. We're having like a triple whammy Wednesday hit and run.
It's not going to stop. Like this year's already set its pace, right? Like it's going to top the last one.
It's kind of funny. There's so many memes online that have been saying like 2020 is going to be a new year. And now it's like 2020 is just the parent trap. It's the same twin.
You mean 2021?
2021. Oh no, exactly.
No. We're stuck in a loop.
Mind loop.
Groundhog's Day. No.
Welcome to the Avant Inn, a weekly culture and politics podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jerome Allen.
I'm the other host, Topher Wagner. And we're here to get spicy, bitches.
So it happened. We are recording at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, and impeachment, it's finalized. Donald Trump is the first president ever to be impeached twice.
There's a part of me that thinks he's probably proud of it, right? Like he broke a record.
Oh, no, he is boasting.
Like
he doesn't have Twitter anymore, so he's just like forcing his aides to like listen to his Twitters, but he's like yelling it at him.
Do you think like his inner circle is right now like, hey, President Trump, like at least you are the first president to ever accomplish something like this, getting impeached twice.
You are historical.
You're historical. You're historical for the number of times you've deserved it and the number of times it's actually happened.
You know, he went to his border wall as like a way to distract people and show off his accomplishments. But all the pictures is just him walking alone next to the wall like a Blink-182.
Wait, he flew out to the Mexican border for a photo op?
Just to walk along the wall. And
we already know he will go to great lengths for a photo op. He will do whatever.
That's an understatement. I remember when he had the Bible in his hand, they said, "Sir, is that your Bible?" He said, "It's a Bible."
Where did he even get it?
I don't know. He probably had Secret Service punch some kid and like some altar boy.
Mike, give me your fucking Bible.
Right.
This was Mother's Bible. Mike, give me your fucking book.
This is my family heirloom.
He called Mike Pence a pussy this week or last week.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's so weird, all the headlines you read now. But
yeah.
One of them was something about him going to Mike Pence and saying, you can either come out of this a hero or a pussy.
And he likes to grab them. So Mike, watch out.
Mike,
he's going to grab.
For your life. Mike has a lot to be scared of right now, man.
There was some talk a few weeks ago of Pence wanting to run for president in 2024. I don't think he has a shot.
No. There's not a single person he won over in the last 4 years of being vice president.
He won over Mother.
Mother is proud of him. Except for giving that Bible away. How dare he? That was sentimental.
I'll have to say, okay. So a year ago, we were in Impeachment Part 1, and Impeachment Part 1 was largely Democrats calling Trump treasonous for taking money in order to sway an election, which on the record he did for sure. Mitch McConnell dismissed it. They didn't want to have the trial. We're in Impeachment Part 2, and now Mitch McConnell is putting his hands in the air and saying, if y'all want to do it, you're going to do it.
McConnell never said, like, I'm going to vote for impeachment, but he's saying, I'm happy that you guys are voting on it. Why? I don't understand why they're so coy about all of this.
It's interesting because I feel like they're protecting a person who's not going to protect them. I mean, Trump has been throwing people under the bus like it's the new fad. Like, he doesn't care. Mm-hmm. He just wants power, and they're willing to give it to him. Even Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, said he did do it. He did incite the riots, but we shouldn't impeach him.
It's insane. I mean, because the first time around, the first impeachment, they all tried to do like real legal assessment of it and saying like, yes, okay, maybe he did these few things, but they are not an impeachable crime. Here, they're not claiming that he didn't do any of the things. They're not claiming that any of those things are not impeachable offenses. They just think it's too divisive. To impeach a president who deserves to be impeached is so divisive. You know what else is divisive?
What?
Violent insurrection is pretty fucking divisive. Terrorism is divisive. Yes. If that's truly what you think this is, then you're just going to have to take it because we are already divided. And the only way for us to ever heal is for people to actually be held accountable.
Right.
And so fuck all of that. We need to just unite. We need to heal. Yeah, we do. But there's one thing we have to get out of the way before any of that can begin.
And that's holding people accountable. I mean, accountability is a part of healing, and healing is a part of accountability. It's a weird tone to be playing. We need to come together when the protests last year were all about unity and equality for every American. This is common GOP tactic. And I was watching C-SPAN. Last episode I talked about watching CNN all day. Today was C-SPAN. And it's funny, C-SPAN, wholly boring. It is super boring.
It is extremely
But there is something about all these like people getting up and just yelling in the microphone like it's a bad public access town hall, and they only got 30 seconds. So they would try to get like their 3 hot takes in, like, this is a sham. This is the worst thing that's ever. He's the racist and chief. Just every person had their own little like, okay, well, here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to get sound bit on. Here's what I want Twitter to latch onto. And it's weird how aware they are of like trying to get famous through their
Absolutely. Like that's how they get the power, right? Is to be like viral on Twitter. Because the truth is that each of their arguments that goes up, you're not changing anyone's mind. No. You're not changing anyone in that room's mind, right? So they're all just sort of getting up and grandstanding in some moment because they know that everyone else has to do it.
Right.
And you don't want to go up and be like, I reiterate, Trump sucks. And it's also frustrating because they've been saying this stuff about Trump for 4 years. And now we have to come in and just once again say the blatant reasons why this man is unfit.
Well, I guess what I found weird was if I had that 30 seconds, I would have just read the manuscript of his speech at the rally that he planned in front of the White House. I mean, it says you need to fight for this. We need combat. I mean, there's not much you have to do. Just read what he says, put it on the record, and say impeach him. That's it.
Right. And what was his defense of it? He said, plenty of people have read that speech or heard it and thought it was totally appropriate. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody thought it was appropriate. It matters who thought it was appropriate.
Right.
The people who thought it was appropriate are the ones.
Donald Trump Jr. doesn't count.
The Capitol. Yeah, like right. Your supporters thinking that what you said is okay doesn't just make it okay. If he said like all the Supreme Court justices think it's okay and all the senators and all the congressmen, but they don't. They're trying to kick you out. And those are the voices that matter when it comes to this kind of opinion.
I did a seance and my father said it was perfectly fine. I will say that when Trump was first elected, I had this want or desire for him to be impeached. And I didn't think it was going to happen because, there has to be a distinct reason for that to happen. And once it came last year, it was like, okay, like I know this isn't going to go anywhere, but it's on the record. Now that it's happening the second time, I feel like there's a sense of retribution of, well, we stood by and endured for 4 years. And I feel like this is ending the way it should.
Right. I think I heard somebody say, might have been Chris Christie saying like, he thinks that we should impeach again. But the fact that we impeached him the first time is sort of, belittling the impeachment process, right? And making it less effective because, if you're going to impeach him over this nothingness, then what? And it's like, there's never, this has never happened before.
Dead.
Like this thing that we're impeaching him for now is probably the biggest reason you should impeach someone that we will ever experience.
Bill Clinton got impeached for lying about cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
That affected no one.
And yet here we are trying to do it a second time. And if it doesn't work this time, it kind of just feels like, why is it even there?
Well, I mean, of course, the obvious thing that has to be stated is that it's not about removing him from office because clearly he's not being removed from office. For one thing. Second thing is there have been plenty of officials lower than the president in state governments and other like federal governments who have been impeached as well after their tenure only to like bar them from office. I mean, the Democrats' viewpoint is that they need to bar this man from office. And I will find it surprising if certain Republican senators don't gravitate towards that, because at the end of the day, if we're playing like we're real politicking, you would want to get, I mean, it's a very reality TV show, but you would want to get your biggest competitor out. So bar him from office. Also, he's a dangerous man.
You need to get your party back. And some of them are obviously scared they're going to lose their base and not win their reelection. But you got to put your country over your party and your politics,
Right.
Especially if you believe in Republican principles. Why would you want this guy coming in?
They lost a lot of Republican voters just because they were not they don't want to be the party of Trump.
Right. That's honestly the bare minimum I want is just for him to not be able to run. It's not really for me about retribution. I think that he can be prosecuted after his term. And I think especially in New York, they're going to pursue that.
The Southern District of New York is going to have a field day. Yeah. They already are. They've got the tax returns. They've got a lot of like financial lawsuits coming his way. I mean, he will be in court until he dies, more than likely.
Also, we shouldn't even have to be banking on impeachment right now. We should have very easily just been able to invoke the 25th Amendment. And if Mike Pence and their cabinet had just done the right thing, they could have easily voted him out. And instead, they tried to act like they're taking the moral high ground by resigning.
Yeah.
Secretary of Transportation, the Department of Homeland Security,
Betsy DeVos
in the Education Department. It's like, you're not a hero for suddenly having some moral standing where you're like, oh, this is terrible.
In the 11th hour.
You're not doing it because you think it's wrong. You're doing it because you don't want to have to vote him out. Exactly. It's cowardly, and they're dressing it up as if it's bravery for finally standing up to him in the last 2 weeks of his presidency.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of legislators have gone on, not publicly, but secretly, saying that they don't want to publicly come out against him because they fear safety against their family, which, in my opinion, if that be the case, if he called you and threatened you, wouldn't you release that to the public? Why is that like under wraps? Like, you should release said transcripts. I mean, we listened, let's be clear, only a few weeks ago did we listen to that phone call, him asking for like a few votes as if he was ordering a pizza. Can I get a large slice, 365 votes?
I'd like anchovies and I'd like civil unrest.
I mean, between that and when I was watching C-SPAN, one of the people were saying, this is super quick. This is not enough time, blah, blah, blah. And my immediate response was, didn't you pass a Supreme Court justice in like a week before the election?
Oh, yeah. Government can work fast if it wants to work fast.
If it wants to work fast, it will.
But I think we could all agree this does feel like, even if we can't get him impeached and all this is all just too little too late. Like, we had so many opportunities to actually deal with it and make people accountable. And instead now we let it go to the very last second. And that's so frustrating to me that we're now here trying to clean up the mess on the very last week. I'm just really worried that the whole thing is not going to come out clean. And like these militias and stuff, like, they're not going to stop. There's nothing you can do to get them to stop. The FBI is going to be combating them for maybe years to come.
Sure.
I think that their efforts are getting a little damaged by the whole social media fiasco of them all getting booted off all the main social media sites, and then Parler getting taken down by Amazon, withdrawing their web servers.
Why would that deter from the FBI?
Because it's harder for them. Oh, sorry. It's deterring the militias from organizing. Because it's harder for them to get together. So now a lot of them have moved to more of these encrypted sites like Signal. Where they can create these like small chat rooms, but that's so specific and you have to really know what you're looking for to get into those groups.
Right.
I think it's a lot harder for them to organize the event that they did last week.
Where I'm at on this is just to like small history lesson. The first movie that was premiered in the White House was The Birth of a Nation. And The Birth of a Nation was about the KKK riding as heroes and saving the white American woman. So we transfer ourselves nearly 100 years later, and we've arrived at something of similar caliber happening near the White House. The White House still kind of prompting it up due to the administration, but at least the rhetoric has changed in referring to them as terrorists or as rioters, whatever it may be, as opposed to heroes saving the white American conglomerate. As much as I rebuke the Republican Party for what they're doing, I at least am acknowledging and witnessing that Joe Biden and most, if not all, Democrats are putting it on the record of this is what is happening. And I think the FBI is only growing into the fact that for so long, like the Nixon administration and some other administrations prior, were prompted up to dismantle, black and brown groups. And now they're recognizing that white domestic terrorism has always existed in this country. I mean, slavery in itself was white domestic terrorism. The invention of the KKK was meant for voter suppression. So the fact that we're arriving at a point that the FBI, an extension of the executive branch, is also on board with that and not perpetuating like white terrorists and white nationalist motives is in itself, I think, as much as this is a really awful moment, we have to say that that's progressed quite rapidly in the last 6 weeks.
I mean, just last year, I think the FBI, or maybe even longer past that, the FBI told the entire country that the biggest threat to America was white nationalist groups and, white supremacist militia groups. And it's true. I mean, the FBI has been following. They knew about this event coming up. They've seen them planning the bombings and the, real violence. Like, some of these people really did plan to come in and take hostages, kill people if they needed to. They built a gallows for Mike Pence. Like, they assembled it in the lawn. They brought the lumber and everything and built it. They're not amateurs. You know what I mean? That's what I was hearing about
this was
today. Like,
quite well planned.
People that have been investigating into these chat rooms and stuff, like, they have real gear. A lot of them are off-duty cops or former military, and they know what they're doing.
Well, the bombs that were planted at the DNC and RNC were meant to distract the cops away from the Capitol. And AOC was speaking about there was minutes of difference. If one cop didn't stop them from doing this, or if they knew to go the right way, then they would have been in serious danger. And that's what sort of is weird about the gaslighting that goes on, or that I saw on C-SPAN was, we need to move on, we need to heal, we need to do this, we need to do that. And it just comes to this point of, you're only saying that because you might have not been harmed. And to me, that in itself is the worst part. But again, this lives in history, historical day. First president to be impeached twice. And those people who are willing to be sycophants toward him will live in history with him. So how do you feel about, I feel like when we were young, it was snitches get stitches, but now it's like, I'm going to take them bitches and I'm going to rat them all out. Well, how do you feel about this like new Twitter gang, like really helping the FBI identify all these people quickly? I saw a man identified on gay Twitter only by his left tit.
Oh my!
He was shirtless, and they identified.
Wait, tell me more about this.
It's just a picture. Like they have a picture of him there and him at the riot, and it's like him shirtless, mask off, and then in the riot he has a mask on, but it's the same guy.
Man,
same guy.
It's like some of them thought about wearing the mask, but they didn't think about the bra as well, to protect their identity. No, I think it's fine. This is not the same as like your typical doxing, right? Where like somebody does something you don't like, and so you release their address and their information.
Sure. No, this was on Instagram Live. Like they
exactly like normally it's for the purpose of like having the mob come after them or sort of intimidate them in some way. This is literally just people cooperating with the police in an investigation. I mean, there are warrants out for some of these people's arrest. But the reason that they think that it's so shocking that they're on the no-fly list and that they're deemed criminals and all this is because they were allowed to just walk out. If you do a terrorist attack and then people just let you leave, why would you think that you had done anything wrong when the system itself has enabled you to do it? And now, who's going to want to go to this inauguration? Because...
Well, there's like 20,000 National Guards on DC. You didn't see this because you were at work. Airbnb has canceled all reservations up until past the inauguration. A lot of hotels have canceled reservations. DC's on lockdown. I mean, and then in the inauguration, I think they're going to be quite wary of like who's going to be there. So it's really tight security.
I mean, too many people should probably not be attending the inauguration anyways.
In general, because it's a pandemic
and COVID and all of that. But yeah, I'm sure this inauguration is probably going to look even more empty than Trump's for a very, very
but Biden's
reason.
Not going to brag.
Biden can't even see that far to see whether the crowd is there. No, he's just not that. It never mattered. It has never mattered before. No one has ever counted the number of people at an inauguration before, have they? Like, nobody's ever cared enough to get that data.
No, because whether people are there or not, he's still going to be president.
Yeah,
it doesn't quite matter. People are there to witness it. It's going to be televised. The transcripts.
I'm watching on C-SPAN.
You go on C-SPAN?
CSPN.
Quick fact for the listeners, but did you know that C-SPAN started in the 1980s through Newt Gingrich, former Republican Speaker of the House, he wanted to put cameras into the halls, into the chambers. Everyone thought he was crazy for doing it. Why would we put cameras in here? So he would stay in the chambers way past when people would leave and just speak to an empty room just to the cameras. And then his Republican colleagues at the time would join him. And over time, it started to gain traction. And we have C-SPAN today. And that's how Newt Gingrich gained popularity.
Wow, I did not expect to hear a favorable fun fact about Newt Gingrich today.
Oh, no, fuck Newt Gingrich. I'm just saying C-SPAN happened because of Newt. Don't put me on record on that one.
I quote, everyone, you heard it today. Jerome said that Newt Gingrich is in fact not the lizard man we all thought he was.
Newty, Daddy, if you're listening. I think the one last thing about this, I feel like a lot of even Democrats have been saying like, this isn't us, this isn't America, this is not how we are, blah, blah, blah. And I just find it weird because I read a really good op-ed on this, but one NPR writer referred to it as white lash, where like something large happens concerning POCs or social movement, and then like a small minority of white people like have this, angry disruption towards it. It happened in Wilmington, North Carolina, when there is a coalition of white and brown people in politics. They burned the city, and it was a huge riot.
Yeah.
It happened after Reconstruction. It happened in the Civil Rights Movement. It happened with Tulsa, with the election of Trump. So we got to advance the conversation. This is us. No, this is America. But and then until we address the part that this is a trend in America and this is the rubber band snapping back before we stretch it again, because I do think, I'm going to put it on record, hopefully I'm not wrong, that this administration will be quite progressive in at least some of its policies. But this is what happens in America. This is America. It's the same place.
It's painful to accept, but it's true. I would change the wording to say, this isn't the promise of America,
Oh, yeah.
I think we all have this idea of the promise of America and what we can be and what we all want to be. But you gotta admit when you're not holding up that promise, like we can't say that we've had this president for 4 years and then say, but that's not who we are.
Right.
No, we elected him. And it's just empty rhetoric, honestly, every time I hear it.
It's the same when all the school shootings were happening. It's thoughts and prayers. It's thoughts and prayers masquerading as political rhetoric that's actually avoiding the history of a lot of all Americans that live here, mm-hmm. as a way to justify neo-patriotism.
Right. Well, and they also want us to think, once Biden gets in office and all this, like we'll return to who we truly are. And they want us just to go back to business as usual so they can keep doing the things that they've been doing. And we're past that now.
No.
The people are aware that we are going to have to keep fighting.
Exactly.
We're going to have to keep holding their feet to the fire. And we have to become the America that they're claiming we are.
Right.
We're still on this journey. And it's just dumb to think that we've already finished it and now we're going backwards. And it's like, no, we are just revealing where we are at.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, not a good place to be at.
Damn.
I feel like I'm so much more bitter in this podcast.
The venom's out, baby. Episode 2, Impeachment 2, Electric Boogaloo, Venom's return.
That's really what C-SPAN needs, is like some cool like CGI moment where Venom comes in and he like rips off McConnell's head and like squeezes his guts out. But it's all CGI. I don't want that to really happen. If you're listening,
yes, because
if you're listening, U.S.
his
government.
like lizard body would be revealed. Okay, we gotta get out of here. Thanks for tuning in. We are turning this into a weekly podcast. Please listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you can find it at theavantend.buzzsprout.com. And please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whichever you like. And it's all the Avant End because we got lucky.
Also, credit to our theme song,
City of Angels by Lakey Inspire.
My name is Topher Wagner.
And I'm Jerome Allen.
We will see you next week if we are all still here.
See you in the inauguration.
Goodbye.